welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Turn the Page. I'm your host today, Jenn, and today I am joined by the writer of an absolutely fascinating and thrilling debut crime novel. I am so excited to talk about a very fascinating career and an absolutely lovely book. So welcome. Could I ask you to introduce yourself and your book, please?
All right. Hi, Jen. Thanks for having me. So I am Carlisle Richardson. I'm originally from the Caribbean, the island of St. Kitts and Nevis. And my background is in international relations and sustainable development. And the Soft Underbelly is my novel, and it's my debut novel. And it's a mystery novel and a political thriller based in the Caribbean, revolving around two investigators who are trying to find the links between the murder of a customs worker, political collusion with the purpose toppling the prime minister, a weapons trafficking syndicate, and trying to find how they're all linked to this mysterious expat who's living on the island. So there's a lot happening on this island.
Yeah, it is absolutely fascinating the way you are able to balance the very specific local landscape with the sort of more international landscape, as it were. Before we get too much into that, though, I'd love if you could tell us a little bit more about your career and your journey as a writer. I know that this is your debut novel, but you've written some short stories and a picture book, I
Yes.
believe. Yeah.
Yes, I have. So I wrote, I suppose the first publication I had was maybe 10 years ago, a nonfiction book on islands. So it's called An Island Way of Life. And then I started writing short stories and different opinion pieces actually on international relations. So that background in international relations, it was something that I'd always been fascinated with, the international. And so I suppose my loves are international relations, sustainable development, history, and looking at the Caribbean and the wider world. And so everything that I've written, whether it's nonfiction, children's books, the opinion pieces and the short stories, and now they short underbelly, have all incorporated those elements. And so you'll find a little bit of sustainability of the Caribbean, international relations. And so, yes, bringing all of that together. But I always wanted to write the crime story, a Caribbean crime story, I suppose, write about the Caribbean and the wider world, how the international environment impacts what's going on domestically, and how things happening on the ground are having an impact on the international scene. So I think I was a little bit successful in getting that done in this novel. Yes.
Absolutely. It feels very real and informed by your professional experiences in international relations. And I'm curious about what was it about that experience that provided the seed for the novel? Did you imagine a particular character first, or was it a particular type of, let's say, crime or political intrigue? What was the beginning from which it all germinated?
Ah, all right. Well, because I always wanted to write a novel, I think working in the international field, I was always looking at things that were taking place. And so while not writing on any specific incident or person, I suppose it was a combination of incidents and a combination of people that I observed over the years. They do make for quite a fascinating story. And for me, just looking at different people interacting, my mind would always go into thinking, all right, what could they possibly be discussing? Is this, what could be the conspiracy behind the scenes? And so that was my creative juices flowing. And I would always jot down different ideas. So sometimes maybe just a scene, a chapter with no real idea that, okay, this is going to be part of this novel. But it was one Friday evening on the Long Island Railroad. So I was leaving the UN on my way home. I lived in Queens back then. And I used to love getting these news magazines, whether it's Time, Newsweek, The Economist, and so I was reading one of them, and there was this article about just the how corruption, political corruption, was starting to impact the entire society. It was seeping into societies, and while reading this, the title came first, "The Soft Underbelly." Because, I'm looking at how political corruption was really changing the very fabric of societies. And with that title, I then I did the outline and some of the stories or some of the chapters or scenes that I had jotted down before, I started incorporating it all into the story. And some of it worked nicely, others I discarded. But yes, so it all began with that title and everything sort of flowed after that.
Mm. That's so interesting. It is a very evocative title, and it does point at, I think, one of the really interesting things about the novel, because I think when you are dealing with um, international relations, things happening on that scale, every interaction can mean two things a little bit, because it's about
Yes.
the individual people interacting, but also like the people that they are interacting on behalf of in a way. And that just creates such high stakes and a really great basis for very exciting storytelling.
Yes. Oh, definitely. Definitely. It's always, I like to say the story is never as it seems. And
Mm.
there's always, multiple layers and trying to really sift through all of those layers to figure out, okay, what is the reality? What is the truth in what we're trying to uncover, on trying to present. And yes, that is international relations. I'm trying to remember. Oh, I think it was Churchill who'd always say that the truth is so um, fragile that we have to surround it with lies. And something like that. I thought, okay, I'm going to incorporate that somehow, somewhere along the way, and that really is the just that theme of you know what is the corruption? How is this? What is the seed of that corruption, and how does it then play out? How do the characters, in being corrupt, try to shield that they actually are these corrupt individuals, and try to present this aura of being honorable? And so that's really how I wanted to present that in this novel.
And, I think that that feels very relevant in today's world, I think. The book does have a very strong message, I think, about political leadership and, what values and what goals would ideally drive that versus like what often drives them in reality. I guess like during your career, you said that you were, collecting notes, jotting things down towards an eventual story. At what point did you come up with both Gerald and Fiona, are sort of two protagonists? Like when did they become sort of I guess like the people who would carry out these ideas, this message?
Yes. There was, growing up, there was this police officer that I would always see. Never knew his name or anything, but he was just, very tall, this muscular individual, walked with this purpose. And, as a young child, just looking at this individual and, just being in awe of the aura that he presented. And so for me, that was the physical element of Gerald came first, because I imagined how this individual would be. He seemed so firm in his conviction. And so I wanted to, embody this physicality into his character. And so for me, with all of this corruption taking place around him, I needed someone who was incorruptible, to be, who is so focused on, you know, let's change this. This is not the Caribbean that he knew growing up. And so for him, he wanted to ensure that, for his son and, for the next generation, basically, that they don't follow the corruption, but really stay on the straight and narrow like he was. So for me, that was Gerald. That was the individual that I wanted to present based on this very young image that I had of a local police officer. Um, Fiona was, I suppose, she was completely made up in the sense of I wanted someone with some, a history to rectify, and so for her having that personal battle of, okay, this happened in the past, how do I ensure that it doesn't happen again? But I definitely wanted to have you know a British individual there because of the overriding conspiracy that is taking place. I wanted to have a British investigator in that mix. And yes, Fiona was, I think, really just she came, I suppose, late one night while writing, and I thought, who is this character going to be? And yes, and that's how Fiona was created.
Nice. It is lovely how their journeys dovetail, because they are on different paths as characters, but who are brought together by the circumstances of this book. And even though
Yes.
their journeys are different, they're very complementary in a way that makes the plot very propulsive and fun to read.
Thank you. That's what I was going for. So that's good. That's good to hear.
Great. And so my last question before we look to the future is about the process of creating a fictional Caribbean country. 'Cause
Mm,
it takes place in a fictional country, but I'm sure that
yes.
you draw on your experiences and the reality of the Caribbean. But can you talk a little bit about how your storytelling goals shaped your depiction? What kind of elements you wanted to be sure to include in your depiction of this country? Yeah, talk about that process because I love learning about like what goes into building a fictional country.
Yes. All right. So I I wanted to present the Caribbean. And the island is its own character, and so for me, I didn't want to go and focus on any specific country because we're all so different. But I wanted to really show that this is the Caribbean. And so by doing that, I had to create this whole new country, pulling elements of the different countries that I know so well. So being from St. Kitts and Nevis, my parents were from Anguilla. And so my childhood was basically in St. Kitts and Nevis and in Anguilla and the neighboring St. Martin. And of course, studying in Barbados and Trinidad um, and visiting Jamaica and Guyana quite a bit. And so there are elements of all of those islands in this place. And I really wanted to ensure that people from each of those islands would be able to say, "Oh, okay, I'm seeing something there about my home." And for people not from the Caribbean, I want them to be able to see it and think, "Okay, I want to see this Caribbean. I want to see what this is all about because it seems quite fascinating." And so there are moments in there. For example, Fiona, gets an aroma. It's like, "Ooh, what is that?" And I wanted for someone reading it, to almost feel like they're walking along the streets and getting that, it's not just the story taking place in this political conspiracy, but you feel like you're walking in the Caribbean and getting that essence. And so that was the world building that I wanted to create, the entire Caribbean on one island. Now, geographically, um, it would actually be where Curacao is, because I put Southeast Caribbean. And I say Curacao because, of course, they're like, the World Cup. Everyone is talking about Curacao in the World Cup now, but that was not the intention at the time. It was geographically because of something that would occur in the last two chapters that I needed it down at that. I needed the country down at that part of the Caribbean.
That is so interesting. And I think that the first chapter with our poor customs agent Simon does a really
Yeah,
lovely job of exemplifying that, because there's a scene, it opens with him just sort of walking and having some anxious thoughts about what he's about
yeah,
to do. And
yeah.
it's really a full sensory experience because you're hearing what he's seeing, everything around him, the colors, the weather, but also he's thinking about the history of the island as well at the same time, and his actions concern the future in a lot of ways. Like, so it's this really like very rich and nuanced introduction.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, that I really wanted to do that. I'm also a student of history. I studied history, and in a different world, I probably would have been a history lecturer at one of the universities. And so I always try to infuse history in everything that I write. And I absolutely enjoyed writing that bit, just, Simon thinking about, the history of the place and different characters also, thinking about history and thinking about, the Caribbean at this point in time. And as you say, what next? What's next for the region? So yeah, definitely wanted to pull all of those elements in there.
That's great. Wow. So, talking about the future, what is in your future? Do you think you'll write another novel?
I've already written the outline, and I'm now so I have the outline and the characters. It's a historical murder mystery, so it's we're in present time, but a lot of the clues are throughout history, and so while the investigator is going, doing their research, we as the reader are going through that history period, going through like the previous 40 years of world history, really, to work out who's done it and why. And so yes, so the plan is to have it completed by next year.
Wow. Oh, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. And I'm glad to hear there's more of a historical element as well. You're developing that because I also love historical fiction and I love studying
Yes.
the past. I think especially when you are in international relations, an understanding of history must be really vital and when to
Oh,
approach a global landscape like that.
oh, it's critical. It's critical to know where we've been, where the countries have been, and because it tells you so much about them now. So yeah, very important.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about your book with us. It was such a joy to read and to talk with you. I'm very excited to recommend it here at the library. And, I hope no rush on the writing or anything, but if you want to come back and talk about that second novel, you're welcome back.
Thank you so much. I would love to.
It's great.
Yes.
All right. And thank you, listeners. Please check out The Soft Underbelly. You won't regret it. It's a great read. It is available now and it will be available when you hear this. So head to your favorite bookstore or library website, wherever you like to go for books. All right. It is time to close this chapter, everyone. We'll see you next time.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.